Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Plus. Union Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia today said that ministry is hopeful that GoFirst will resume flights very soon. Scindia said that GoFirst has submitted a plan to DGCA and some queries were asked, some queries were answered, and they will be reverting on those queries very soon. Speaking on the work done in the aviation sector in the last 9 years of the Modi government, the minister also said that GoFirst suspension led to a void of over 300 flights and 4 to 5 cities were particularly affected by high airfares. The ministry has taken cognizance of the issues related to airfare which have surged on certain routes in the recent week, and it has asked airlines to rationalize fares and watch the pricing. Now, airfares have jumped significantly, as I mentioned, on certain route in the wake of the crisis hit GoFirst suspending operations on 3rd of May. Let's quickly listen into the minister speaking there at a press conference before we start discussing the larger question on what happens with civil aviation and the prices of flying on air or taking to air in case this high pricing continues.
विश्व में एक नया इतिहास रचने वाला एयर इंडिया 470 प्लेन्स का ऑर्डर $70 बिलियन का मात्र शुरुआत है और पिछले अनुमान लगा रहे हैं अनेक एजेंसी के अगले 4-5 वर्षों में 1200 से 1400 अतिरिक्त प्लेन्स के ऑर्डर भारतीय कंपनियों के द्वारा रखी जाएंगी। अगर अधोसंरचना की हम बात करें तो जहां 74 एयरपोर्ट होते थे आजादी के 68 वर्षों में, वहीं इन 9 वर्षों में 74 अतिरिक्त एयरपोर्ट, हेलीपोर्ट और वाटरड्रोम स्थापित करके 148 पर आज हम पहुंच चुके हैं। तो 100% वृद्धि हुई है 9 वर्षों में। जो 68 वर्षों में भारत ने किया है वही भारत ने 9 वर्ष में दोबारा करके दिखाया है। अगर इसका एक भाग हम लें ग्रीनफील्ड एयरपोर्ट्स का, 2013-14 में केवल 3 हमारे ग्रीनफील्ड एयरपोर्ट्स थे, आज 14 हो चुकी हैं। तो 11 नए ग्रीनफील्ड एयरपोर्ट बने हैं। जो हमने 21 की अनुमति प्रदान की है उसमें से 11 तैयार होकर देश के लिए समर्पित हो गए। तो 400% वृद्धि इस क्षेत्र में हुई। अगर उत्तर पूर्वी राज्यों की हम बात करें जहां 9 एयरपोर्ट्स थे 68 वर्षों में, आज उसी उत्तर पूर्वी राज्य में 17 एयरपोर्ट्स हैं। मतलब करीब 8 अतिरिक्त बने हैं। 90% की वृद्धि उस क्षेत्र में हुई। अब आपके साथ मैं इस मंत्रालय के सफर पे थोड़ा चलना चाहूंगा और आप इस पर प्रकाश डालना चाहूंगा। 4 मुख्य भागों में हमने अपने सफर की तैनाती की है। पहला है हमारा कोर एरिया, कोर ऑपरेशंस, एयरक्राफ्ट, एयरपोर्ट्स। सेकंड है हमारा इकोसिस्टम, क्योंकि जब कोई इंडस्ट्री एक स्केल धारण कर लेती है उसके बाद इकोसिस्टम की स्थापना हो पाती है, और वही इकोसिस्टम की स्थापना अब नागर विमानन के क्षेत्र में भारत में बनना शुरू हो चुका है। तीसरा है संस्थात्मक ढांचा, इंस्टीट्यूशनल स्ट्रेंथनिंग, क्योंकि अगर विमानन क्षेत्र में एयरलाइंस और एयरपोर्ट्स की वृद्धि हो रही है, इकोसिस्टम का सप्लांटेशन हो रहा है, तो इंस्टीट्यूशनल सिस्टम में भी वृद्धि लानी होगी उस अतिरिक्त ट्रैफिक को संभालने के लिए, उस अतिरिक्त डिमांड को संभालने के लिए। और चौथा भाग है नए इनिशिएटिव्स, मतलब अभी कहाँ हमें बीज बोने हैं भविष्य के वृक्ष वृक्ष को तैनात करने के लिए। तो इन 4 भागों में हमने अपने मंत्रालय के सफर को हम लोग ने मॉनिटर किया है। अगर कोर एरिया की हम बात करें तो कोर एरिया के अंतर्गत पैसेंजर वृद्धि की तो हमने बात की है। वर्तमान में हम लोग 14.5 करोड़ पर आ चुके हैं, जहां 130% की वृद्धि हुई है। पर हमारा अनुमान है कि 2030 तक ये आंकड़ा 45 करोड़ तक जाएगा। अभी 300% वृद्धि आने वाले 7 सालों में होने वाली है। और वैसे ही एयरपोर्ट्स के क्षेत्र में जहां मैंने आपको कहा कि जो 68 साल में देश ने करके दिखाया है वही प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में 7 सालों में देश ने करके दिखाया है, 9 सालों में डबलिंग हुआ है.
All right, that's Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia there, laying out a roadmap for civil aviation sector and also talking about the highlights of 9 years of Modi government and what the government achieved as far as building airports is concerned, from airport infrastructure to greenfield to flights. All in all, trying to build momentum around the last 9 years and to discuss what the momentum is at the moment, the highs, the lows, the misses. With me in the studio is my colleague Krishna Kumar. Also joining us is Dheeraj Mathur, who is an aviation expert. I want to come to you first, Dheeraj. Before we go into nitty-gritties of how the last 9 years have been, at the moment, one of the major concerns that is sort of a concern not just with the aviation regulator, with also the ministry, but the people in general, and that is the high prices of airfares. And that is largely due to the fact that GoFirst suspended flights on 3rd of May. Since then, there's been a void. And from what comes across right now, from what we look at when we try and book a flight, all the existing aviation players, they are trying to milk the opportunity, and the airfares on some very, very common routes is also at an all-time high.
Yeah, hi, thanks for having me. On the airfare, there are two things I'd like to say. In general, there was a major surge after the train accident and after the problems in Manipur first started. That kind of extraordinarily high pricing was actually, if you ask me, immoral. The airline should not have done it. There should have been a humanitarian touch perspective, and they should have been helping passengers and our citizens of this country. That is unforgivable. If you ask me, that was a very immoral thing that happened. Other than that, as far as the high airfares are concerned, look, you must realize it's not just GoFirst 60 aircraft. Overall, 108 aircraft out of total 700 that operate in India, 108 out of 700 are grounded. And that includes all airlines, because almost everyone has Pratt & Whitney engines, and everyone who has Pratt & Whitney engines has a problem. Over and above that, there have generally been supply chain disruptions during the COVID period, and globally, the industry hasn't fully recovered as far as spares and particularly spares are concerned. So as a consequence, there are 108 aircraft that are grounded, and there is an acute shortage of seats. This was particularly acute in May, which is a busy month. June is relatively lighter, and therefore, if you see, the prices have also fallen. The second thing is that if you try and book a flight just now, if you want to fly today or tomorrow, definitely prices are very high. But if you book a week later, not a month, but just a week later, prices are almost half. I mean, Delhi, Bombay, if you want to go today or tomorrow, would probably be around 10, 12,000 rupees. But if you're willing to wait and just a week, it's around 4,500 or something, which is what I saw yesterday, which is a fairly reasonable fare for Delhi, Bombay. Now, last minute tickets do tend to be more expensive across the board. But if you plan your travel, and normally, see, who does this high fare really hit the most? It hits the leisure travelers, those who are traveling on holidays and so on. Now, normally people who travel on holidays book in advance. It's the air travelers or those who are facing emergencies who book in at the last minute. So, barring those facing emergencies, it's a small percentage, and it's unfortunate, but you can't do anything much about it. But as far as business travelers are concerned, if an airline can sell a ticket that would normally sell for 5,000 for 10, why wouldn't it do it? If the market can bear a price, why should an airline not charge it? Because look, we are naturally, and as a consumer, I also feel exactly the same way. But if one looks at it objectively, look, during the COVID period, all airlines made massive losses.
Okay.
And the government didn't bail out anyone. The government did extend a, a credit guarantee facility. But it was, at the end of the day, airlines had to borrow money. They had the support of the government in terms of the guarantee. But they have to return that money. So you see, the one, to sum up, one, the price surge post the two emergencies was immoral. That should not have happened. Second, we must recognize there is a supply shortage. 108 aircraft are grounded. And that creates a supply shortage, and that naturally will spike prices.
Okay.
And the third thing is, if you're willing to book in advance, and I'm not talking about 6 months. I mean, normally when people book international travel, they book months in advance. You know, so even 6 months in advance. And when you look at, you know, travel between India and the US, where a lot of people from the US travel to India during the winter holidays, people book almost a year in advance just so that they get low price tickets. So I think
that is understood, Mr. Mathur, and we agree with that. But you know, the concern here being there's been a massive void, Krishna, and that is 300 flights less due to GoFirst suspending operation. That was inevitable, unavoidable, had to happen. They did not have enough operational money. Now, the ministry is saying we are hopeful that GoFirst will resume operations very, very soon, and that will fill up the void. But essentially, we have taken cognizance of high prices, and this is especially hurtful when it comes on the back of a Balasore accident, where people want to travel a fixed route, maybe, you know, to understand whether their relatives or family members who were traveling in that train to ascertain their whereabouts, to go there immediately, and the last minute traveler, they take a hit.
Right. We are even discussing this, and we're talking about travelers. See, I mean, it's laws of economics. When you have no other forms of transport, your ticket prices will go up. You can't let it say that like, oh, no, it's a tragedy, let's not have tickets. It doesn't work that way. But what will work is India having a full-fledged, thriving domestic airline industry, which is what India doesn't have, which is why even one small airline, which is not even the main player in the market, and one airline goes into voluntary insolvency proceedings and all those aircraft are off the air, then you have such a big problem. And then on top of that, you have a tragedy that happens, and it looks as if, you know, everybody is suffering. But the fact of the matter is that India is still a fledgling when it comes to having an established domestic airline industry. In fact, India has the potential to be a global aviation hub. That's what the government believes, and that's the reason why you're seeing this announcement from the aviation minister with so many airports being opened in the last 9 years and so many more airports going to be open, because India strategically is in a place where it can be an aviation hub. People can take connecting flights from here. There should be more international flights from India. And that's what, say, you know, Air India is trying to do. The new Air India is taken over by the Tatas, where you have everything from, you know, Air India to Indian Express to Vistara, all being merged into one airline. You see the CEO of Air India, what he says, Campbell Wilson. He says that for India to be a global aviation hub, there needs to be more international flights from India. Now, anybody who wants to fly out of India, you know this, Shweta, we always end up booking an international airline. It's a Lufthansa or a KLM or even a Finnair these days. You're not booking an Indian airline at all, not even one. So that's what needs to happen eventually. And for that to happen, India needs to fix something that's fundamentally rotten over here, and that is not having a stable and vibrant domestic airline industry. And for that to happen, there needs to be more investment. There needs to be more, you know, people, trained people, skilled people, more aircraft being bought. I mean, thankfully, of the Air India coming in, and hopefully that will build up competition within the industry. You have Air India, Tata's investing $70 billion. They're going to get about another 400 odd aircraft into their fleet. All of that, I'm hoping, will sort of bring more sanity to our ticket prices, our flight ticket prices, in the near future. You also have new entrants in the market like Akasa Air, which is coming now. So there are players coming in, but the fact of the matter is that, Shweta, you have this chronic problem that gets exacerbated with the tragedy like Balasore, once in a 2 decades kind of a tragedy, and that's fundamentally happens because India needs to have more planes, more airlines, and more airlines flying within India and outside of India.
And interestingly, you mentioned Akasa there because the minister also mentioned Akasa, and in similar parlance as you did, he said while we talk about GoFirst and Jet Airways, we must not forget the success stories of regional and new domestic airlines like Akasa and small regional airlines. So essentially, Dheeraj, what minister here is saying is that you shouldn't be drawing your references from one or two failed stories. What you should also look at is a market that is increasingly getting more and more competitive, and some would say even consolidating, which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree with Krishna, The fact is, I mean, in all the positive and some level of drum beating also about fastest growing market, potential hub, etc., etc. What we forget is all this, that we forget one word, and that is potential. And to realize the potential takes time. It takes investment. And it takes a number of things, it's a number of things have to be in place. And here the minister is right when he says that, look, it's not just, there are multiple dimensions on which growth and development needs to take place. The entire supply side environment scenario needs to be developed. It's not just aircraft, it's not just airlines, it's also the aircraft, the airports, the airport infrastructure, the ground handling environment, all of that, the security at the airports, all of that needs to develop in tandem together so that the entire environment develops, and that's how we will mature as a civil aviation market. Of course, we need the big, glamorous, high volume metro airports. But more than that, we also need the low-cost airports that will support a regional hub and spoke model. I mean, you can't have the same level of charges at a metro and at a tier 2 town. And it's only when the tier 2 town get airports of their own, they start feeding into the metro line, to the metros and the major hubs, the major trunk routes. That's when the market will develop. That's when the market will grow. We have a huge unrealized potential, and when that potential gets realized, the demand would be so high that the airlines would all have higher load factors. They would have greater capacity deployed. Their top lines would improve, and as scale improves, so would the bottom line. And there's one other thing I want to say. I forgot to mention it earlier when you were talking about the air prices, the air ticket prices. Now, if you want to travel Delhi-Bombay tomorrow by train, you won't get a ticket. Getting a ticket by train is very difficult. You have a Tatkal scheme, which is a little more expensive than the normal. And remember, train tickets are heavily subsidized by cargo, by freight. So you don't have that cross-subsidy facility available in air travel. So we have to be realistic that in our expectations, and also patient in terms of our, again, in our expectations, because there are a lot of things that are happening, as the minister said. A lot of things have happened in the last decade or so, and it's still a work in progress, and it'll still take at least 5 years.
Another thing that is work in progress, and in particular, while there's good news on GoFirst, Mr. Mathur, we understand that Ministry is saying at this point that GoFirst will come back, and in fact will come back very, very soon. They have submitted a proposal. There are some queries that need to be answered. There is a larger problem here, and that is with respect to grounded fleet. Now, data that is available out there suggests that literally 22% of the overall flights and the aircrafts that are operational in India are grounded at the moment. Now, somebody once said something very interesting on this very show, and they said that of aircraft has no purpose on ground. So the more time it spends on ground, the worse it is for the airline and for its own health. So essentially, a grounded fleet, it remains a major concern. Is that something that airline players can work around with, with lessors and also with engine makers to get these engines repaired very, very quickly to get them up and running? Because today it may be a problem with GoFirst, sir. Tomorrow it can be a problem with any other, major airline.
Yeah, Shweta, as I said, there's a total of 108 aircraft in India that are grounded. We have a total of 700 registered aircraft. 108 of them are grounded. And as I said earlier, it is largely because of supply chain issues with the the MROs and the engine manufacturers. Everyone who has Pratt and Whitney engines has aircraft that are grounded. And as you said, a grounded aircraft is a net burden on an airline, because it has every aircraft has very high fixed costs. You have the crew, the leasing, the airport parking charges, and so on. Now, those fixed costs are a drain, because if the aircraft isn't flying, there isn't a revenue to service them. So definitely, this is somewhere, maybe an area where the government could think about sort of, facilitating or a resolution. At the end of the day, look, these are contracts, commercial contracts between the airlines, the lessors, and the part suppliers. And beyond a point, the government can't really do much. But this is certainly an area of concern, particularly with Pratt and Whitney apparently saying that, refusing to honor their commitments to GoFirst. So that certainly is a matter of concern now. That is in court. There's litigation going on. And like I said, these are contracts. So there's not much that the government can do. But perhaps it can use its good officers to try and find a resolution, help mediate a resolution, possibly in this situation.
Okay. Krishna, from what I see, the government, of course, trying to say that look at the success story. Don't just look at the story of, the glitches on the way. And it's calling essentially, from my reading of it, a GoFirst a blip, not a reference point. This is not going to happen. History will not repeat. A Kingfisher perhaps will not repeat. And there is an emergency credit line that is now available to GoFirst. We'll have to see whether GoFirst avails that credit line. They need an upward of 200 crore rupees to start operating very, very quickly. With Jet, it's all the more interesting because lessors are now hoping to take Jet to court because they want their money back on the fleet that they have leased out to Jet Airways. So two major players there are currently battling it out, ensuring that one wanting to come back on air, the other hoping that it will sustain. So, overall, when you draw a picture of the Indian aviation space, you draw a picture of a space that is extremely, hoping to be robust, is extremely positive on what's to come and really kicking to get up, but falls down every time it gets up.
Yeah, the hope is that the way, GoFirst dealt with the situation by going for voluntary insolvency proceedings. Many say that that's the right way of going about it in a situation like that. Instead of allowing it to blow up completely out of proportion, you have a measured, in that sense that, sort of creating a playbook for the worst case scenario. Now, having dealt with the worst case scenario, now we're hoping for a comeback into the skies. The situation should normalize once GoFirst is back, and Jet also deals with all its problems with its creditors and is also able to put its fleet up in the air, and you have Akasa extending the fleet. Then you will see some normalcy happen for a brief period of time. Okay. And then what will happen is, my understanding is that the demand for air travel will only keep going up in this country. Domestic air travel, if long distance trains are going to be a problem for too many people, then they have to be given the flight option, and with the rise in the middle class, with the rise in income levels, you're going to see demand for air travel pick up, and that's the reason why you have an idea like Akasa Air making it to the skies eventually. It was backed by the legendary Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, the legendary Dalal Street investor. So he obviously saw the potential for civil aviation in the country. There is huge untapped potential, and that's the reason why you've got to stay optimistic in a market like India. The most populous country in the world, the most diverse country in the world. So much of...
I mean, look at the dichotomy of it. while India as a market is hugely underpenetrated, it is always also the fastest way of losing money to get into aviation sector.
There are a lot of ways of losing money in India. Make a movie, start a political party,
And start
an airline. These are like short ways of losing money for sure. But the fact of the matter is that that's what let me take you back in history a little bit. When the Marans from the Sun Group bought over SpiceJet, that was the time when they, I think, bought over SpiceJet for around 75 odd crore rupees. But at that point in time, they were making a movie that was worth 100 crore rupees, 150 crore rupees. But the fact of the matter is that something like civil aviation affects the lives of so many more people than one movie, and then the future generations as well, because this kind of mobility encourages people to take up jobs in places which are far away, and that's the kind of jobs that they want to do. You're going to see movement of labor, movement of people wanting to work in long distances, and we don't want to get into a situation where all of them are crammed into the trains. Enough and more have to be given the options to take to the air.
It's very interesting you mentioned that, because we have always planned, and the hopes were that aviation or flying is not going to be an upmarket thing to do. A more aspirational Indian, a common middle class, lower middle class should be able to take to air. That of course was the grand plan. Now the prospects seem to be dwindling a little bit with the blip or the glitch with GoFirst.
No, the prospects don't dwindle, Shweta. That's the thing. What happened with the airlines and the economics of running an airline, people are learning lessons and they're improving with it. These look at the way the GoFirst is handled. So the way these companies run will become better, and we'll have lesser instances of all these insolvencies and etc. happening. But as far as demand is concerned,
demand
no
is
worries.
not going away anytime soon at all. But my concern is that with the prices going up, it becomes very, very difficult for any aspirational Indian to pay up a 17,000 rupee for a flight to and from here, Delhi to Bombay, which
that's
is
how fragile India's domestic airline ecosystem is.
Absolutely, it makes it very, very expensive. But we will, of course, keep coming back on that story. Mr. Mathur, thanks very much for joining with your inputs on that story. It is an important one. Civil aviation sectors, all the jitters, all the glam, all the glory will be tracked here on News 9. But shifting focus for now, NRIs have a newfound interest in real estate in India. Reports suggest that share of non-residential Indians in local residential real estate has almost doubled after the pandemic. Prior to pandemic, NRIs would account for less than 10% of the sale of premium and luxury projects. That's gone up to 20% now, according to various industry experts, and has been reported in newspapers all across the country. For many developers, almost a fifth of their sale is now coming from outside the country. Now, there are many reasons for the higher interest in Indian real estate market by NRIs, but mainly attributed to the appreciation of dollar against Indian rupee, which is making it easier for them to invest back home in India. Joining us at this point in time is Hemant Sood, who's a promoter at FinDoc Financial Services. Hemant, appreciate you taking time out. I want to understand what is driving this trend. Why exactly are NRIs coming back to invest not in gold, not in financial products, but in property, and that to real estate, that to premium property?
I think it has been driven by two factors. One is it is a normal market trend. When you see an appreciation in a sector, that you tend to invest more. So there has been a lot of real estate appreciation all across the world, and so there's a more interest for the NRAs or even resident Indians to invest in real estate, because they have been witnessing the real estate appreciation. So that is factor number one. Second, I think now after the pandemic, people have realized the value of real estate. People like to have a real estate where they can spend time where they like, and this has encouraged a lot of NRAs to invest in Indian more. And as a matter, and the dollar is at a high. It is close to 82. I mean, it has also appreciated 15-20%. So that has also encouraged a lot of NRAs to invest. Because they are getting, for the same dollar income they are generating elsewhere in the world, they are getting a better value of real estate in India.
Okay, interesting point of view there, Krishna. One essentially being that they're not just investing in India because, of course, dollar appreciating also means that you are getting more worth of your dollar here in India in terms of rupee, but also the fact that they are looking for Indian investment in real estate because real estate prices have appreciated. So that means better returns. But as the old adage goes that investment in home, investment in property is never the best sort of investment because it is not an appreciating asset, it's only depreciating. But, contrary to that, it's not a home that, from my understanding, what Hemant is saying, it's not a home that they are hoping to keep for themselves, it's a home they are hoping to buy and sell off and make money on that.
Right. I mean, it also talks about the kind of real estate market that exists for non-resident Indians, especially in America. So probably they're not, willing to invest or not being able to invest at the prices at which the way in which the property markets in these countries abroad operate. But I have a point to make here, Shweta. Home is where the heart is. For NRA, as far as NRAs are concerned, so many of them, you've seen a wave of people who went to America to work in the last decade or two, coming back to India, especially America. So many go from India, go to America, and the United States of America, by that I mean. And you're seeing people come back as well. So, maybe this, you have Indians, moving, buying a house in London as a last resort. If something like a pandemic were to hit, they'll move to London. But you're also witnessing the NRI probably building that safe house in India or buying that safe house in India, were they, to suddenly take a decision to wrap things up wherever they are and come back to India.
Well, it's a fair point, and it's a fair point I think Hemant can also answer at this point in time. Hemant, it's not just about NRIs, is it? I mean, luxury property for that matter is like selling like hotcakes for everybody, and there is a sudden thrust towards buying luxury, buying premium property, as opposed to buying a home as to just live in. So it's not just a 2 BHK, 3 BHK that you're looking at. You're also looking at an extremely plush home that offers you a society, that offers you a whole host of facilities. What is driving this thrust towards premium property?
I think for the premium property, first I already mentioned there's a lot of appreciation, particularly in a premium property. And
are you suggesting, Hemant, that the property is being bought only to be sold, not to be made a home?
It's not that, but still you have a satisfaction of the mind. And as I told you that in a premium and the luxury property segment, it's probably bought by the HNIs. And HNIs, have after the pandemic, have witnessed more interest in buying a way they call as a home. They were looking for a bigger home. They're looking for more luxurious homes because they have observed that if they had a bigger and luxurious home, their life would have been different during the pandemic. And I also have one real estate portfolio company, and we are seeing a lot of interest. People to call as a second home. They for example, there are joint families in a Chennai segment, and they want them to have a second home for their brothers, their sons, their daughters. So because they want a bigger space, so that is also driving what you can call as a luxury and segment. And what I wanted to mean in as appreciation, it helps you. It's obvious you don't want to sell it, but still it's a back of the mind. You know that you bought it property at X price. And when you compare with the gold and stock market or wherever, and the market prices, why it still helps. Okay, I made money this space and I'm enjoying the perks of that property as well. So it helps. It doesn't matter you want to sell or not, but if it is the property is appreciating and you are living it, you say there's a double whammy, or what you can say double bonus.
Right. At this stage, the only thing I want to come in with is this: the fact that you have Indian property developers opening up offices in Dubai and Singapore now, to start selling to people, NRIs straight directly in Dubai and Singapore. That's where things are. My question here is that over and above everything, is it simple things like the simplification of the tax regime or digitization of procedures when it comes to buying property here in India? This simplification of procedures and processes is also a huge factor. It's probably the main factor attracting NRIs and making them go ahead with that purchase.
So you asking me?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Sood, that was a
You
question
asking
for
me?
you. Yes, sir, it was a question
sorry.
for you.
Yeah. So I think a lot of processes have been improved in the digitization of the market, and obviously some of the developers have opened the open marketing office elsewhere. Because obviously when you open a marketing office, you anticipate that there is a demand in it, and you cater there to give them a better service, better product offering, probably closer connect to your target audience. But I think digitization is still a long way to go. Digitization is not the only factor. Obviously, it helps, and it has reduced a little bit taboo that investing in India property is a nightmare. and that's why the more trend is in a luxury property that is mostly developed by tier one developers, and they are already good in the the in the terms of delivery, in the terms of the infrastructure, in the terms of the whatever you call as a digitization of your records, the transfer of the ownership. They have a dedicated customer service department. So that's why the trend is more in the luxury segment, because the most of the investors outside India, they don't they never, I will not say never, mostly they won't see a problem with the tier one developers. And so that's the one case. And secondly, what there's another factor also to it. There has been a lot of inflation all around the world. So everywhere around the all around the world there's 30-40% inflation, and so real estate investment is also a little bit of inflation hedge also, unlike your bank FD and all. So these are most of the investors or people who have parked their money in the bank, and they've seen the lot of inflation. So people consider real estate as a little bit of inflation hedge as well.
Okay. I want to understand from you, Mr. Sood, with the government's announcement of capping capital gains at 10 crore rupees in this budget, which kick-started from 1st of April this year, do you think that the sales figure are going to go down? Because in 2022, there was a massive boom. Everybody rushed to buy a real estate. And from the pictures that came out of the famous picture outside a DLF property in Gurugram, where we are given to understand in a pre-sale offers, all homes were sold. These were luxury homes upward of 5 crore, 10 crore rupees. So people have that much money, but they were only hoping to invest it to get the meaningful gains that they could up until the end of financial year. Do you think the numbers are going to rationalize now?
Everything has to rationalize at some stage of point of time. And believe me, this real estate frenzy is also because the prices are rising. I know everyone says the homes where your heart is, but you don't postpone your decision when you know the prices are appreciating. For example, I want to buy a home for my retirement, so I know the prices are appreciating. If I delay, it's going to cost me more. So I will be little bit more eager to invest now than to decide in 3 months or 6 months. And regarding DLF, particular property in Gurgaon, they had a few successful projects where the prices appreciated more than 40% in the DLF case. So the DLF, that Gurugram project was riding on their last project success. So the frenzy is also a little bit role to play. Regarding the 10 crore, the government which has brought, obviously this will have effect a little bit, but the people, Indian being called a jugaadu, they will try to buy in 3-4 names, something like that, with family members, brothers, wife. But still, it will have impact on it, because the luxury sale has a lot of role, because there was a lot of money being made after pandemic. A lot of in Ultra Chennai, people have offloaded a lot of their stocks, investment, offloaded their equity, and they had a tax outgo to pay, and that has resulted into buy a luxury home and to defer the taxation.
Okay. Now, we are running short on time, so I want to come to you with the last bit, Krishna, and perhaps understand why post-pandemic there was a boom. I mean, people who were buying homes up until pandemic. What happened in pandemic that everybody wanted to buy a property, and especially a premium property? What exactly led to it?
I would say those things that you saw, the number of childbirths that happened through the pandemic. People decided to make babies. People decided to buy houses. People decided to make huge life decisions during the pandemic, because it's the time to think things through. If you were to ask me, I'm no crystal ball gazer, but to just understand the way humans react, the human condition.
The tragedy.
The tragedy, yes, the tragedy is happening, and then so many people survived. At the end of the day, incredibly more number of people survived the pandemic than the number of people who died. And all those people who survived it sat at home and thought about their own lives, about the fragility of life, about how you can lose life to COVID in a jiffy. So knowing the fragility and the mortality angle, playing on your mind all the time. So they are like, you
might as well live fully.
YOLO. You only live once, so might as well go for all the big decisions, make babies, buy houses, move countries. You saw so many people moving out of moving countries and moving professions, and quitting jobs, quitting professions, all those things, big life decisions. And I think buying a home is just one of them.
Right. Pandemic there led to a wake-up call, especially in the real estate market, along with other life decisions, of course. Interesting story. Mr. Sood, thanks very much for joining with your inputs on that story. But we're going to shift focus for now. India-born Ivan Manuel Menezes, the CEO of global spirits giant Diageo, passed away on Wednesday at 64 years old in London. Now, Menezes, he was to retire at the end of this month, was admitted to the hospital for treatment of health condition, but he could not make it through. Why are we discussing this story? Because Menezes was an Indian born. He was born in Pune. He's a story of how Indians are making it big in the global leadership landscape. His father, Manuel Menezes, was the chairman of the Indian Railways Board. He was educated in prestigious St. Stephen's College right here in Delhi and later in Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad. He is leaving behind a very, very rich legacy. We had the opportunity to speak to some of the people who've known him. They are heartbroken. He was very young, died too soon, Krishna, and leaves behind a very rich legacy at an organization that perhaps has a great market share and more importantly, I think, serves as how a lesson in leadership. And there is a playbook here. Not just him, from Google CEO to YouTube CEO, and a legacy of Indian leaders who are, some have passed away, some currently continue to be at the helm of power, but leading the way on what to be a leader and how to be a leader.
Interesting you mentioned all those names. All the names you mentioned apart from Mr. Menezes are technology-related CEOs. Mr. Menezes, as if I may, belongs to the old vintage. Because 1997 was when he joined, liquor giant Diageo, and then he's, taken positions across the world for Diageo. He's also been a non-executive director at the American brand Coach as well. So he's, he was even knighted in their 2023 New Year's Honors list as well. So you're talking about an incredible human being and a corporate giant who's accomplished so much. And the sweet irony is this: an Indian-born CEO who went on to do so many big things for this company and become the emblem of this company. So many of the company's brands are like ruling the roost here in India, across liquor categories, especially whiskey. You have Johnny Walker, Signature, Royal Challenge. Some of the biggest, most famous brands in India, consumed by Indians, belong to the Diageo stable. And it's certainly a sad day that, when Mr. Menezes passing away just a month before he was to retire. It's absolutely, tragic that he passed away. Such a doyen of a man, passing away before his time came to let go of the reins officially. So it's a good thing to remember that, as far as the Indian management, Indian CEOs go, it's not just about technology. We've been generating and making good managers for a very long time now.
Absolutely. From Vimo to YouTube to Chanel, you've got Indian leaders everywhere, and Menezes was just one of them. He, of course, leaves behind a rich legacy, but many of them continue to exist and continue to thrive in various positions, not just in IT. As you mentioned, from fashion brand to retail brands, you've got Indians everywhere in the top management. I keep
saying IT because we keep referring to Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai all the time.
I just mentioned Chanel.
I know. No, I'm saying people in general. They, even Shantanu and Ryan, Adobe. Again, Adobe, another tech company. The fact of the matter is that it's because...
Let's admit it, we are good at tech, Krishna.
We are fantastic at tech and we're great at other things as well, being the point.
Absolutely. So our tribute to Menezes, who passed away at the age of 64. But shifting focus to another important story that we're tracking, coming from the Maruti's stable. Maruti Suzuki launched Jimny, which is priced at 12.74 lakh to 15.05 lakh. That is the ex-showroom price in Delhi, as it eyes the top slot in the robustly growing sports utility vehicle segment. This is one of the first SUV launches from Maruti at this point in time. The 5-door model, which features a 1.5-litre petrol motor, will come in 2 trims, Zeta and Alpha, and will be sold through Nexa dealership. The car is being touted as the competition to Thar. Great visuals there. Jimny finally hitting the market, Krishna, and a lot of expectation. Of course, a cheaper version of Mahindra's ultimate Thar.
Yeah, let's face it, the reactions to the pricing. I'm specifically talking about the Jimny's pricing has been mixed to really bad on the Twitterverse, at least, if you see, because people are like, it's a fantastic car. Everybody's very extremely happy, eagerly awaiting for the final pricing to come out. So many bookings have happened already. You're talking about a very specific segment of the SUVs, the 5-door segment, a car which can do great off-roading like the Thar. It's a literal Thar competitor. You have prices starting for the Jimny at 12.74 lakhs. Where does the price for the Thar begin? It begins at 10.55 lakhs. You're talking about a more than 2 lakh premium for the base variant of these cars. So that's the reason why you're seeing this sharp reactions online about the pricing of the Jimny. But fact of the matter is that people love the way the car looks. It's got great response.
Absolutely.
Everybody wants an option to Thar, but everybody was extremely hoping that it will be at least a price competitive option, if not a cheaper option. But let's wait and watch, because the Jimny is a fully loaded car. It's capable. It's built for extreme off-roading capabilities, huge boot space. Great technology within the car as well. So it's a fully loaded car that we're talking about. It's got variants, but the fact of the matter is that it's got a lot of options that people can go for. It can give you the things.
25,000 bookings already and upward of that. So there is, of course, an uptake in the Indian market. People who've been waiting very, very actively to get an alternative to Thar.
Oh,
it may be a bit expensive, but I mean,
that
everybody
means
can rake up 2 lakh rupees extra if you've got to buy an alternative.
Shweta, I think all the market research done behind the Jimny was absolutely spot on. There was demand for a Thar alternative. That is proven by the pre-bookings that we've got. But then again, you see people on Twitter going like, let the Maruti announce the number of cancellations that they've got for their Jimny as well so far. But we don't know. These are early days. These are early reactions. As I said, this is the Jimny, from what we understand, is a fully loaded car with latest features that's going to take that off-roading experience to the next level. So
and coming from Maruti's stable, it is important to discuss that. Maruti, one of the most trusted, most selling automobile brand in India. The only segment perhaps it was steering clear of. I don't know whether it was done, dutifully. It was done thoughtfully, or was it done because they did not find a better alternative? But Maruti finally trying to capture that SUV market, which is fast expanding, eating the market of hatchbacks, eating the market of sedan.
I was just wanted to tell you this before we start. Spot on, you asked that question, because the SUV market is what I would call a SUV universe. Because there is the normal SUV, there's a mid-size SUV, there's a small mid-sized SUV, there's a compact SUV. The number of categories are expanding by the day. And then now you have the off-roading SUV. Everything is called an SUV. Does a car belong to any other category these days? Everything is one version of an SUV, which is a very peculiar category called the sports utility vehicle. Everybody has become sporty these days when it comes to buying their daily ride to work and a daily ride for their family. But the fact of the matter is that this is a very specific category in the entire SUV universe. The ones which can do serious off-roading is a very particular category. It's got an iconic brand like Thar that Jimny is going up against. That's what I'm worried about the Jimny for. Not because of the quality of the car, the Thar and the loyalty that the brand Thar has. Jimny has a lot that it's up against. It's got an uphill road, if I may.
Absolutely. Jimny's got to travel an uphill road. We will, of course, keep tracking the success of Jimny if it finds success. But latest entrant there from Maruti Suzuki in the SUV market. We'll, of course, have to wait and watch out for what sort of reaction the market gives. But initially, there is some sort of resistance, for the pricing is little on the higher end. But with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business Plus. Keep watching News 9.